Nothing quite says it's Baptism Sunday like SpongeBob SquarePants. Some of you are like, no, there's plenty of things that do. Please don't ever do that again. So it is Baptism Sunday, Paradox. I quit. I'm just gonna quit. Today I resign right now. Listen to me. I got that much out of 9 o'clock, and half of them literally had one eye still closed. So it's Baptism Sunday, Paradox. So here's to me what is a little crazy about a day like today, because it can't get lost that there is some craziness to this. In that, what we'll do in these waters in just a little bit this morning is the continued celebration and practice of a tradition that has been going on unchanged for 2,000 years. 2,000 years. Like, think about that. How many things do you presently do in your life that you're doing the exact same way that you were doing 20 years ago? 10 years ago, 2 years ago. In the last number of years, my family alone, we've had different jobs, lived in different places, our habits are different, our favorite restaurant is different. My body has pains in it that 10 years ago I didn't have. I don't know what that is. Somebody told me it's turning 40-some years old. I guess. I woke up the other day, sat up in bed, and my neck strained. Like I literally hurt myself waking up. What in the heck is going on? Like life is ever changing. And what is somewhat interesting, to the degree that particularly if you're not very familiar with this, what's almost bizarre about a day like this is that 2,000 years ago, a man from ancient history told us to do this. And that in doing this, it would be part of how we would both identify with and even to a degree connect with the God of creation. He himself claiming to be the God of creation. And for 2,000 years, because of that instruction, we have continued to do this while the world around us has changed. This has remained the same. The only thing about it that has changed has been how we refer to it. In Hebrew, we called it the mikvah. And in Greek, we called it baptizo. And today, we call it baptism. So this morning is Baptism Sunday. And like in first service, this service, there will be men and women that are going to climb in these waters for one ultimate reason. And that is to profess that they believe that there's a God, that Jesus Christ is him. And that Jesus came, died, rose again, is going to come back again, and they're living their lives for him in the meantime. And so this morning, as we move into that, to celebrate with them, to worship with them, or even maybe for some of you just to watch out of curiosity and wonder what this is all about, we're also going to sing. But I want to invite you as we sing this morning just to be mindful of the fact that for us here at Paradox, when we sing, it's not just because it's habit, it's not because it's a traditional thing, it's not because it's a religious thing, and we don't think that we just sing words up to the sky. We really believe that God listens and he hears. Matter of fact, in the Bible, there's a verse in a book called Zephaniah that says that God sings over us. Chapter 3, verse 17, look it up. It says that God sings over us. And so we sing back to him, because that's what you do when you're just crazy passionate about somebody. I still remember early on when I was dating my wife and I wrote songs. I don't write songs. I don't write poetry, but I did for her because I was crazy about her. We sing because the God who we believe is crazy for us, we are crazy for. So would you stand this morning and would you join us? Or maybe these words aren't yours and this is just weird and you're not into the singing thing in church, then maybe just let these words fall over you because they are about the God who loves you. So welcome to Paradox.
This song is called Love Changes Everything. I see his body breaking. I see his fingers bleed. I see the darkness tremble at the ground below his feet. And in the darkest hours, there are you were sweetly broken, broken beautifully, broken beautifully. So come out to the water, come let the broken sing. Come on, sons and daughters, His love changes everything. So come when the fear is fighting, you fight when the risen King. Come on and let the light in. Your love changes everything. In the valley low, I will fear no evil, 'cause you'll never let me go. You'll never let me go.
Come out into the water, come let the broken sing. Come on, sons and daughters, His love changes everything. So come when the fear is gone, find out the risen King. Come on and let the light in. Your love changes everything. So come out into the water, come let the broken sing. Come on, sons and daughters, His love changes everything. So come when the fear is gone, find out the risen King. Come on and let the light in. Your love changes everything. Your love,
Your love,
your love changes everything. Your love,
your love, your love,
changes everything. Your love,
your love, your love,
changes everything. Your love,
your love, your love.
you are the Lord of the beginning, one with God, Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation, now revealed in
guys were able to connect with God there for just a couple of minutes. So go ahead, take a seat, check this out.
Don't you guys love being able to see our students on screen and playing important roles on Sunday mornings? I love that. Instead of the mentality that says one day they get to take this room over, this stage over, like, no, they're part of it now. Like, they get to be up here now. So I love that. A couple things I want to let you guys know about before we get to this and some stuff that we're going to talk about this morning. There are some things happening at Paradox right now that are important enough to us as a community that we want to just share some of that with you, both of which are very exciting. Now, if you're just kind of checking us out and you're maybe here to watch somebody get baptized today and this isn't your community and you're like, I don't care about that, maybe some of this will be cool to you as well, so maybe you want to lean in also. But if you just give me a moment to do this, I need a couple of people up to help me. So Mike, Tim, Greg, wherever you guys are at, make your way up to the stage. If you do not know anything about Paradox, let me just really quickly, maybe some of you come here and you still don't know this. There are details and there's organization behind the scenes, and part of how we are led and structured. And if some of you are like, I not wake up today to hear about church structure. Am I going in and out? Is that my mic or my ears? All right, I'll just shout. It's my ears. I'm getting old. Is that what you said? So part of how we are structured here is we have a team called a management team. And that's just because we're not creative enough to have a catchier name. But basically, that is the team that makes and wrestles with and wears the really the responsibility on our shoulders for a lot of the heavy decisions and direction. And much of that's exciting. Some of it's overwhelming at times. But this is the team of people that I'm a part of that is that team. Two of the guys on that team, Mike and Greg, are two of our pastors. Tim is basically here to keep us all in line, make sure we behave. And we have, it's a joke. Come on, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. I don't even know what time it is. Is it 11? It's 11. It's 11. All right. So one of the things that we do regularly is we wrestle with, is there somebody else that God would have be a part of this team? And for a while, we have really felt like there's another voice that we need on this team. And, as much as I appreciate working with these guys, I think all of us would admit that we don't think that we're the smartest people at Paradox. And so we've been looking around. Now you're awake? Man. So, I don't know who it was. Somebody, security, find them. So we've really been wrestling with, we've been praying about and talking about whether or not to add somebody new to the team. And we have really felt like there is a new person that we needed to invite to the team. So we approached them. They talked about it with who they needed to. They prayed about it, thought about it, and then they agreed to step onto this team. So I want to introduce you to the newest team member that sits in what is some days a really exciting position. Many days can be a really overwhelming one. So I want you to, as they take the stage, just thank them for that. And then I'm going to tell you why we invited them. So Tuesday Toomey, could you come up front? So for those of you that do not know Tuesday yet, Tuesday has been around since we started. Way back in the day in a library when there was just a handful of us. She was there, she was meeting with us and has been around. And part of the reason that some of you may not even realize that know her, that she's been here this long, is she's a little bit like a Christian ninja. She's really powerful but operates behind the scenes. And there's so many things that I think you might even assume we do as a church. It's actually only because of her. PB&J. Once a month we make sandwiches, we go downtown and we feed the homeless. That's not a Paradox thing. That's her thing. Like, that was a vision God gave her, an idea God gave her. She started it. She funds it. She gets all the support from reaching out to other people and places for donations. And we just got on board and said, we want to help. We want to support. And we'll give you a platform. What was the other one that we talked about earlier? Hope on a Go. I don't know if you've seen the bags that we put downstairs at the table called Impact. Impact is all the things that we try to do in the community. There are little Ziploc bags with all kinds of goodies, because there are just times where you run into somebody that has a moment where they need help. Can I have money, or I'm hungry, and how many times we're like, I don't have anything. Hope on the Go is a bag to be able to give to people. There's socks and toothpaste and toothbrush. There's little snacks in there. So it's not everything that someone may need, but it's something. Again, some of you might assume Paradox did that. No, that was Tuesday and her family that did that and came up with that idea. And there are so many ways we have seen just her commitment to Jesus and her commitment to Paradox. She's one of those types of people where she's just going to do what God called her to do. And you can either get aboard and be a part of that or just get out of the way because she's going to do it. In addition to that, she brings just an unbelievable skill that none of us have. You've written how many books? 35. 35 books. Have you read 35 books? She's written 35 books, and just the amount of skill and discipline it takes, not just to write the book, but to market those things and all the things that she's had to learn. She brings a skill and a way of thinking to our team that I think we're absent right now and will really benefit us. And this last week, she sat in on her first meeting with us, and we kept it to the time frame, so we didn't go into the wee hours of the night. We'll break in on that later on. But she already in the first meeting has begun to bring something fresh to our team that I think we would all agree that we were missing. And so this is a big deal for us. And maybe you don't think it's a big deal, but it is a big deal for us because this is an important team that makes a lot of the big decisions that happen here at Paradox, which puts a lot of weight and responsibility on our shoulders and a lot of sleepless nights, and she has willingly stepped into that team to bear some of that burden. So again, would you appreciate her and thank her? Now, in addition to that, I also want to catch up on one other piece of kind of information about us as a community. We have not always been in here. Some of you know that, probably most of you know that, but we've only, as of about a year now, been in this facility. For much of our history, all of our history, up until now, we've been portable, packing everything into a box and driving it away at the end of the day and then unpacking on Sundays and repeat. And so a couple of years ago, we decided to start a campaign to try and raise money for a facility because the church said we want a facility of our own. We can do so much more if we don't have a place just one day a week. So when we began that campaign a few years ago, the pledge that came out was $400,000, $450,000 was what was committed. Well, that pledge, which is a 3-year pledge, is nearing the end. We're about to be done with that at the end of May. We will finish that pledge. And we told you a couple of weeks ago that we were about $100,000 shy of that $450,000 mark. And so we just asked, can we cross this finish line with some strength? Can we actually, in the 3 months left when we start talking about it, could we possibly together as a community make the sacrifice to get to that $450,000 mark? Those of us that have been giving, could we do more? Those of us that haven't been a part of this, could we jump in and start giving something? And I'm excited to tell you that in just the last 3 or 4 weeks since we started talking about it, we have brought in an additional $20,000 to the campaign. And on top of that, I think this is huge. This says something to me, and hopefully it does to you. Your leadership here, so your staff, has pledged another $15,000 on top of that just from your leadership and staff, which means between pledged and given, we are $35,000 closer to our $100,000 goal at the end of May. How exciting is that? However, again, whenever we talk about the building, I want to remind you that it's not just to have brick and mortar. If this place ever became about we just want a building, I'll be the first to burn it down. This place is about reaching more people. Do you remember, here, let me show you a before picture. Remember this? When we built this place out, stand where GJ's at, give you some point of reference. So this security guy, that's GJ, that's his name. He's standing about right here somewhere. So there's your point of reference. All of our dream for this place was so that this, watch this, would become that. That was last week in the second service. That's the fullest this room has ever been during a service here at Paradox in our new facility. And here, listen, here's what's really cool. That's cool, but here's the coolest part, because this is what it's all been about. Last week, 54 people told us they made a decision for Jesus before they walked out of these doors. This is about that. And so I'm enthusiastic about where we're at with the campaign as we near the end of it, as we get ready to wrap it up. And I would just continue to invite you, if you are a part of it, continue to be a part of it. If you gave, could you do more? If you gave nothing, could you do something? And continue to ask yourself, how can we as a community believe in this thing enough to continue to give to it so that we can cross that finish line strong and cross it together? So there's our kind of our housekeeping stuff I just want to get you with for a minute. So can you thank these guys as they walk off the stage for being pretty and just standing there? And then I just want to pray for a moment and ask that God would be so present in the next few minutes of our time. Father in heaven, I'm just so thankful for what you're doing here and for the way that you are developing this community into a group of people that love you, that are committed to what you're committed about, and as a result are changing not just other people's lives, you're changing our lives. You're changing mine as a result of it. This morning, I want to make much of Jesus and what it means to follow him and be captivated by a life committed to him. And so I pray that you would bring alive words from your scriptures, that they would make sense to us, that they would teach us, they would inspire us, encourage us, and that they would move us towards you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, Droopy. So one of the questions I get often when we do baptism is just questions about the literal, just the practice of it. Like what specifically happens during baptism? Like how does it go? What's the logistics of it? How does it actually work? So what we did is we filmed a kind of a tutorial video to show you how baptism goes. So go ahead and take a minute and watch your screen.
How come you have not been baptized?
Because I never got around to it, okay? I don't know why you always have to be judging me. Because I only believe in science.
But tonight, we are going up against Satan's cavemen. And I just thought it would be a good idea if you...
Some of you are going to be watching over your shoulder all morning. Don't you put no bowl in front of my face. I will throat punch you. So, all right, in all seriousness, so here, let me just give you the practical. Here's what happens. So this is a tank that we keep in the back room. I wanna just make it as real and practical as it is, because sometimes we turn this into something that's sacred and holy. This is just plastic and fabric and foam. What will happen in it is sacred and holy. The water is just water, surprisingly warm when most people get in, but otherwise it was filled this morning out of a hose. It is just good old Detroit H2O. And in a little bit, what will happen is that people will climb into these waters, and so let me just give you the literal picture. They're going to stand in the center. I'm going to ask a couple questions. They're going to give a couple of answers, very simple things, kind of yes or no type stuff. I'm going to give people the opportunity to share if they want. Some will, some won't. Then I'm going to have them lean backwards, and they're going to lay all the way back. They're going to go all the way under the water. Depending on how much I like them is how long they'll stay under the water. And when they go down and under the water, that is to represent what we believe happens when you put your faith in Jesus, which is you die to yourself. That's the going back and the down. That's the death. And then when they come up out of the water, that is what we also believe happens when you put your faith in Jesus, is that you come back alive. You are birthed into the family of God. There's a verse in the Bible in a book called Galatians, chapter 2, verse 20. It says, "Therefore I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I that live, but it is Christ who lives in me. And the life I live in this body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loves me and gave himself up for me." We believe that all of that belief is being represented in this motion, down and up. And here's one of the coolest things I love. When that water runs off, it's like a visual picture of the fact that everything that has stood in between that person and God, all their sin, their mistakes, their regrets, their shame, all of it just runs off and is gone. It just gets taken away by the cross, and there's that kind of shedding away. It's that representation. Now, let me be clear. This doesn't do that. In other words, this water isn't what makes a person right with God. This water isn't what we would say in the church, isn't what saves a person. What does that is a very personal, inner belief that a person is made by faith to believe in Jesus Christ as crucified, resurrected, coming again, Lord of all creation. That's a decision that some people made maybe years ago. But for whatever reason, they waited until today to get baptized. For other people, maybe they made that decision in the last couple of weeks, and then today they're getting baptized. Some people made it even last Easter, like last week. And here's what I love. Some people will even make that decision for Jesus in the literal moments before they walk into these waters. See, I don't know about you, but the church that I grew up in, there was this idea that for you to get baptized, you had all these hoops you had to jump through. You had to have a board that you met with, and they had to hear your story and basically approve it and give you a thumbs up that it was legit. You had paperwork you had to fill out. You had a time that you had to wait. You had a class you had to take. And I get that there was an idea behind that. They wanted to help people understand the serious nature of what they were doing. The problem is, I don't see that in this book. In the scriptures, what we see time and time again, including from Jesus and his disciples, is that men, women, children put their faith in him, believed in who he said he was, and in that moment, not weeks later, not after a class, not after an interview, in that moment, they walked into the waters and were baptized. And so we do it that way as well. Now, I had a story in mind that I wanted to teach this morning, because that's the what of baptism. I want to talk to you for a couple minutes about the why. And so I had this story for the last several weeks in my mind that I wanted to teach, and then in the last week, I feel like God just kept changing that, and like just kept saying that's not the right direction to go. And I don't know if that seems weird to you. Like if you're new to church or new to Paradox, maybe it's like, uh-oh, he hears from God. Like, I think we can. And I think you can hear as much from him as I can, and I think some of how we hear from God is through his written word. But I also believe what the Bible teaches, that when you put your faith in him, like his spirit lives in you. And you can hear his voice. You can hear his voice in your heart. You hear him leading you, giving you sense of direction. And I did. This last couple of days, I really felt like God said, the direction you're going is the wrong direction. I want you to change it. I want you to go a different direction. Now, I don't do this often because some of you are like me. I'm a creature of habit. Like when I have my mind set on something, whatever it is, I just go. When I have a plan, I have a plan. And I don't change my plan often. And so sometimes this has happened over the years, but it doesn't happen often. So I was a little resistant. Like at first, like I'm arguing. I don't know if you have walked with God long enough, that means you've heard his voice. And if you've heard his voice long enough, you've had moments like this where you disagree and you kind of argue back. So I'm arguing with him. I'm like, I don't want to change. I've got my plan. I'm going to go my plan. I'm going to go my direction. He's like, no, you're not. You're going to go this direction. And he kept, like, no matter how much time this last week, I kept trying to think about the story I wanted to teach you. The other story kept coming to mind. Part of my resistance was the fact that I had a plan. I didn't want to change my plan. Part of my resistance was also the fact that, frankly, the story that I am going to teach you this morning is one that is so taught, and it has been so preached so many times in so many churches that if it was a song on the radio, it's at serious risk of being overplayed. So part of me thought, we don't need this one today. We all know this story. Even people that have never been to church know this story, and I just felt like God kept saying, and that's the one you're going to do. So that's the one I'm going to do this morning. And here's the only reason I'm giving you the inner dialogue of my crazy head is because it makes me wonder if just maybe somebody in here today, maybe online, maybe the second service, I don't know, maybe somebody that will hear this today desperately needs to hear what God said you need to talk about and not what I thought I needed to. So my prayer, if that's you, is that you will listen. Because before you walked in these doors today, I think God gave me the message that he had you in mind for. Matthew chapter 14 is where we're going to go. So for just a couple minutes, I'm going to look at this with you, and then we'll get to these waters. Matthew 14 says this: When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by a boat privately to a solitary place. And hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot to all of the towns. And when Jesus landed and saw the large crowd, he had compassion on them, and he healed their sick. But as evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." But Jesus said, "They don't need to go away. You give them something to eat." He said, "Well, we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Bring them here to me," he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass, and taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looking up to heaven, he gave thanks, and he broke the loaves. And then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples to the people. And they all ate, and they all were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 baskets of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides the women and children. So in other words, the women and children aren't included. So if you include the count of women and children, you can easily put this number up to 10,000 or plus people that were there. Now, what's interesting about this story to me is that the collection of books in the Bible that speak specifically to the life and teaching of Jesus are the Gospels. Some of you know this, but maybe some of you don't. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those are the first 4 books of what's called the New Testament. They're all about Jesus, his life, what he taught, what he did. Every other book that follows them and talks about Jesus is a reference back to one of those stories or one of those books. So these are hugely important in knowing who Jesus was, what he taught, what he was about. The problem is there was a lot to tell. And so between the 4 authors, sometimes you'll have a story that some of them will tell and others just don't. For whatever reason, some of them omit certain stories that others will include. This is one of the stories that all 4 authors include. Without exception, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they all write about this story. And you've got to believe that part of that was because this was just an incredible day. 10,000 plus people show up. I mean, it's just safe to assume that this was probably one of the largest audiences that had yet gathered. So if you think about this as church, Jesus just created in an instant, like, mega church. Like, it just blew up. There's people coming from everywhere. And not only is it an unbelievable crowd, like, there's just awe, right? Like, if you were here last week and you stood in the second service and you saw that we only had standing room only, we had to bring all these extra seats, like, there's a moment where there's just like, Like, there's something powerful. Like, a mass of people creates a certain momentum. So you got to believe that part of this was them going, this is crazy. You see how many people showed up? But then, like, what the heck miracle? Put yourself in any arena right now. Can you imagine all the restaurants are closed, there's nothing to eat, everybody's hungry, and there's one kid with a Happy Meal, and that feeds the entire arena? Like, there's just no denying in that moment, okay, this guy's not just a teacher. There's something about this man. All of that passion, all of that excitement, all of that momentum wrapped up in this one experience. The only thing I can compare it to is a little bit like what churches experience maybe on Easters, where you do have these like massive swells of number and people come in and there's just something exciting about that. It's palpable. And then for us, beyond just that, we get to witness this incredible moment where 54 people say, I want to move towards Jesus. Many, if not most of them, for the very first time ever. Right? And so here's what I'm thinking. Like, you've got this incredible moment. We can understand that a little bit, like looking at some maybe the incredible moments that we've had as followers or as a community. But have you ever noticed in life that it feels sometimes like incredible moments are almost immediately followed by really frustrating ones? Like, amazing moments are followed by miserable ones. You go back to the story, and that's what seems to happen here. It continues to go on, and this is where it will probably become very familiar to you. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into a boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. And after he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was great. And I tell you this all the time. You have to insert a certain amount of humanity into the Bible. If you just read the words, you can strip it of its reality, and we can just go, oh, it was a little windy. No, it's more than just a little windy. Like, it was a storm, and the way the story is told and the way the account is given would have you to believe in more than just one place that this was a bit of a tempest, if you will. So I don't know if you know this, but there is rare video footage of this day and age, and we've just been able to get our hands on some of it to show you what that moment and that scene looked like. Pretty sure that's actually what it looked like too. That's what was happening. So here's the deal. What I want you to do is I want you to just put a picture in your mind. I want you to put a picture in your mind that's not just they're out there and there's just a little breeze. Like, I want you to picture in your mind they're on a boat, they're way out from land, and they're just getting hammered. They're getting hammered on this boat. And here's how I want you to picture that. Because just moments ago, they had this incredible experience in the same 24-hour period. Now everything has changed. And where God was present with them a minute ago, now he seems to have gone MIA. And where everything was unbelievable a few minutes ago, now everything seems to be falling apart. So I'm going to ask you again, does it ever seem like in life, incredible moments with God are followed by these really miserable ones that seem as if he's gone MIA? Because that's this moment with the disciples. And then here's what's really crazy. If you want to add frustration on top of frustration, remember, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all record the story. But Mark includes a detail that for some reason Matthew doesn't include. So in Matthew, where we're reading, the next couple verses go on to say that Jesus basically starts walking out to them. But I want you to see the detail that Mark includes that we wouldn't get if we only read this out of Matthew. So here's what Mark tells us. He saw that they were in serious trouble, rowing hard and struggling against the wind and the waves. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and Jesus came towards them. Walking on the water, he intended to go what? Past them. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with this story, but if you are, have you ever realized that detail that God did not come walking to the boat? Like, his plan wasn't to walk to them. That was not his original plan. Is, oh, my disciples are in trouble, I'm going to walk out to them. His original plan was he was going to walk right by them. He was going to pass them. I don't know if you feel like that ever, but I do sometimes. Like, I feel like that's the way God treats us sometimes, where it's like, hey, God, I would like a little bit of your, where's he going? And he's just like, he goes to everybody else's boat, and sometimes it just feels like you're standing there, and he's just passing on by, and he's just going to do his thing, and he's just gone. And so you have this moment where the disciples are only in the boat because he put them there. That's a whole other sermon in and of itself. You think it's safe to walk with God? It's one of the most dangerous things that you can do. But they're in this boat because they're walking with them, and then when everything starts to fall apart, he's not coming to them. He's actually about to pass right by them. So go back to Matthew, and here's what Matthew says happens next. So Matthew, again, is going to pick up some of the same text, but it's going to omit that one detail Mark had. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." Now here's what's interesting, is that they're freaking out on this boat. Here comes Jesus. It's safe to say none of them have ever seen anybody walking on water, which is probably why they don't know if they're seeing a ghost or Jesus or what's happening, but they have this moment of debate. He tries to calm their nerves, but he doesn't calm their nerves by saying, "Fear not, I can see the horizon, this is passing soon," or "Fear not, you guys all know how to handle a boat, you're fishermen for crying out loud," or "Fear not, it's not as bad as you think it is." What does he say? Fear not what? Basically, I'm here. It's I. Not fear not, the storm is going to go away. Not fear not, everything's going to calm down. He just says, fear not, I'm here. In other words, listen to me. I absolutely believe that true courage is always found in connection to Jesus. But there are two things in life that will frequently attempt to rob us from connection to Jesus and play into our fears. And there are two things present in this story that I think even translate into our own lives. One is the stuff in life that we're comfortable with. And the other is the people in life that we're familiar with. Like, think about it for Peter for a minute. So Peter's got this boat that he's in, and even though nobody wants to be in the storm, clearly they're freaking out. Things are outside of their control. He gets a boat. Like, he gets this. Like, this whole thing he's in, he's done it his whole life. His daddy did it. His granddaddy did it. He knows a boat. He's been in them before. He's been in them in storms before. He knows how it's going to rock and roll with the waves. He knows where to put the weight to shift the boat the right direction. Like, he gets it. He doesn't want to be there, understood, but he gets boats. There's a certain amount of safety in what you are familiar with, in the things that you are comfortable with. And I can guarantee you there's a certain comfort factor in the fact that he gets boats. For us, we have our own boats. Maybe it's not a literal boat, but maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a habit, an addiction, a job. Maybe it's even a set of beliefs that you have. I talk to people regularly about spiritual matters and their beliefs, and oftentimes one of the things I come in contact with is people that have a different set of beliefs, but the fact that Jesus is Lord, but their beliefs don't make sense to them, but Jesus is so unfamiliar that they would rather stay in this place of belief because it's comfortable, even though it doesn't make sense to them. Even though they may have an ache that pulls them, that goes, something about Jesus draws me, but this belief system is comfortable because it's what I've always known. The things in life that you and I are most comfortable with will always tempt us to just stay seated when God is attempting to pass us by and call us to himself. But it's not just the things, it's also the people. Like, the people we're familiar with can oftentimes encourage us to stay as well and not move towards Jesus. For Peter, who are those people in that moment? It's the other disciples. It's the other 11 men in the boat that are his friends. This is his crew. These are his people. There is always a certain comfortability in the people you're familiar with. And I'm not just talking like religious people or non-religious people, people following Jesus or people not following Jesus. Listen, I'll tell you the honest truth. For me, sometimes the voices that have been the loudest in an attempt to keep me from pursuing Jesus, how and where he would have me to go, have been Christian people, not non-Christians. Have been people that say they believe in Jesus, not people that are going, hey, I don't get you, and so I'm criticizing you. Here's the thing. The people in your life that would keep you from pursuing Jesus and having deeper connection with him are the people whose company you would rather have over his, whose opinion would matter to you more than his, whose presence would matter more to you than his. Two things will always attempt to keep you from taking the step towards Jesus to take hold of him. And that's the stuff in life you're comfortable with and the people in life that you're familiar with. So here's what Peter does in this moment, though, because this is where Peter, in my opinion, this is where he shines. Peter says, Lord, if it's you, then tell me to come out on the water. And Jesus said to him, come. And then Peter got down out of the boat and he walked in the water and he came towards Jesus. Now, I got to wonder, though, if there's details that aren't included. Because, again, all of the authors, they can't write every single detail in every story. And you've just got to wonder if in between the, is that you, and the walk on water, in other words, the question and the action, is there a dialogue that we don't get? Are there details that didn't get recorded? Because this is a group of friends. And I know in my own group of friends, one of the things that we don't do is keep our opinions to ourselves. Like if you're really close, you tell each other what you think. And if one of your friends is doing something dumb, you tell them they're doing something dumb. And in that nobody moves with them. Like there's no account in here that says, and James also wanted to, or and John thought about it. It just says Peter did, which would lead me to believe nobody else even made a move. And in that nobody else made a move like Peter made a move, I'm just going to assume that no one's a big fan of this. Like not this moment, not this decision. And so you've got to wonder, like, did they give him that, like, you're insane type of stare? Like did they give him that look, like, it's your funeral, Pete, whatever? Or did they say something even? Like they didn't think this was Jesus a minute ago. A minute ago they thought it was a ghost. Maybe they questioned his decision. Hey, how do you know for sure that that's Jesus? That could be anyone or anything. Who have you seen walking on water? I don't know, but how do you know it's Jesus? Like they could have questioned him. You know, maybe they could have just said, hey, just because he can doesn't mean you can. If you know anything about the disciples, Peter's the one that seems to have the most hang-ups, serious anger issues, liar, a doubter. Like John, now if you want to hold up a disciple, John was the disciple to hold up. Like maybe there's even, if it's my group of friends, they're going to call that guy out and go, hey, Pete, listen, love you. We all know if someone's going to experience a miracle in this boat, it's probably not you, Mr. Issues. Let's let John take a step on the water. Like nobody moved with him, which again leads me to believe that nobody was supportive of this moment. Nobody themselves are going, hey, this is a really great idea. There had to be some other dialogue going on of discouragement, or at least the stare that said no. And this is where Peter stands out. And this is where Peter shines. And it's not because he's perfect. It's not because he had this innate ability to walk on water or this kind of supernatural ability that was just in him. For one reason, that when he found himself in a place where he was comfortable with people that he was familiar with, he was willing to step away from all of that into what was uncertain and risky and move towards grabbing hold of Jesus instead of staying where was familiar and where was comfortable for him. So I just wonder for those of us in this room, especially those in here that would consider yourself a follower of Jesus, how does your life stand out? Like, how do you stand out from the rest of this world? Like, how have you taken in your own life steps towards Jesus that looks so different from the way the rest of the world lives? How it talks, how it acts, how it believes, how it treats people, how it treats itself. How have you stepped towards him in such a unique way as to stand out from the rest of the world? Or is it possible that some of us in this room are like so many Christians, where we're Christian by name but not by look, where our lives just don't stand out at all because we're more committed to be here in the places we're comfortable with the people we're familiar than out there with Jesus, where it's risky, dangerous, and uncertain, but you will have the possibility of walking with God. There's this thing I hear a lot of times about God and about faith, and it's that he is irrelevant. He's just irrelevant. He's just irrelevant to life. He's irrelevant to our lives. He's irrelevant to our modern culture. I just wonder if the truth is God isn't irrelevant. So many of his followers are. And we are projecting and casting that shadow onto him. Because you know part of how you define the word relevance? This is literally, go look it up on Webster. Part of the word relevance can be defined as a clinging to, connected to. What did I say a minute ago? True courage is found where? Connection to Jesus, being connected to him. Connection creates relevance. So if part of relevance is connection, then what's the opposite? What's irrelevance? Disconnection. Disconnection. What if the truth is the reason that so many people think that God is irrelevant is because so many Christians are living disconnected from him, committed more to their boat, the places they're comfortable, the people with whom they are familiar. They are more connected to those things and not to him. And so he looks irrelevant because what's the point? Because too few of us are doing this and stepping out and walking with him. And in stepping out, we are standing out. See, that's part of what baptism is all about. It is a commitment that as these people get into these waters today, they're not going through a religious ceremony. They're doing this because they're saying, I'm stepping away from the places I'm comfortable with, and I'm willing to even step away from the people I'm familiar with, even if they would criticize me, not understand me, or scoff at me. I'm willing to step away from all of that, that I could take hold of Jesus more intimately, more closely, more powerfully, and walk with the God of creation. That's what this is about. That's part of what makes this so significant. Now, here's what's cool. Some people have already made that decision for today. Like there are people this morning, there are people right now as well, that they filled out something, they sent it in just so they could reserve a spot, we could get them a t-shirt ahead of time and do all that. But I'm absolutely convinced that there's just got to be somebody in this room that even though you didn't come in here prepared to take that step, that this is the very step that God is saying to you right now. Get out of your boat, get out of your boat, get out of your boat, and get in these waters. And this is one of the first steps that he would have you to take to move towards him and grabbing his hand. Because here's the thing. Peter, and I love this part of the story, because Peter's not a perfect guy. If you know Peter, if you know anything about the Bible, you know that. Here's how the story wraps up. But when he saw the wind, so he's there, he's walking, and he gets distracted, he sees the wind. When he saw the wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. You of little faith, he said, why did you doubt? And when they climbed back into the boat, the wind died down. And then those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. Let me make it very clear. People getting in these waters aren't doing this because they think they're better than anybody else. They're not doing this because they think that they've achieved some level of spiritual superiority. They're not doing this because they think they're perfect or they've got it all together. Most of the time, quite the opposite is true. What they're doing here is this is what Christianity is about. You ready? They're doing what Peter did. They are just reaching for the hand of God. And sometimes, in your pursuit of God, you'll walk on water. And sometimes you'll sink. Sometimes you'll get everything right, and sometimes you'll mess everything up. But every time you reach for the hand of God, he reaches back without fail and grabs hold of you. And that's what the people moving into these waters believe. Not that they're perfect, not that they've got everything together, but they're reaching. They're reaching for the hand of God, and he's reaching back. And like I said, some are ready. Some have prepared. But maybe some of you came in and you didn't know it was baptisms, or you just came to support somebody else, but maybe the reality is today is the day that you move. You move. You get in here. And you're like, no, not me, man. I ain't going to do that today. Maybe the more resistant you are is the more evidence that God's pulling on you right now and saying, today is your day. You move as well. You take this step as well. Now, some of you might go, you know what, though? I'm not ready. I didn't come prepared, so I wish I could have, but I didn't come prepared. We did. We did. So we've got shorts. If you need swim trunks, and you can even keep them. We don't want them back. We got drawers, if you like drawers under your shorts. We've got bags for women as well that have more articles of clothes in it, I promise. But we have stuff. If you want to get baptized, you're like, I didn't come prepared. We came prepared. We've got bags out there just waiting for you. You're like, yeah, but you know what? If I do this today, like, I'm not even a religious person. I've not talked to anybody about this. I'm not share this. Like, I go out of here today and I tell somebody I got baptized on Sunday, they're going to look at me like I just said I'm a cannibal that showed up for lunch. Like, they're just not going to get that. They're not going to understand it. That's okay. Listen, you don't do this for them. You do this for you. You might go, yeah, but I think I would have liked my family here. Your family is here. In the Bible, in a book called Romans, in the 8th chapter, it says that when we put our faith in God, we are adopted into his family. So that, this is what Paul writes, who writes this part of the Bible, we can actually refer to him as Daddy, Father, Abba, God. Now, if that's true for how you move into relationship with God in that moment, that he becomes your dad, what does that mean about all the other people that have already made that decision? Who are they to you? Brothers and sisters. They're your brothers and sisters. They are your family. So if there's even part of you today that's like, well, I would have done this, but I wanted my family here. Paradox, is their family here? Yeah. Now, as people are starting to head back and get ready that have already told us they want to do this today, let me also just really quickly address a few of you that may be going, hey, this is really good. Yeah, this is great. You know, I'm a believer, though. I'm already committed. I've even already been baptized, so I hope somebody gets baptized today, and maybe even somebody spontaneously, but this is a day for them, really. This is a day for you, too. Maybe not because you need to move into these waters, but listen to me. There is always water to move out onto when you walk with Jesus. Are you moving out onto it? There's always a boat to move away from if you're going to follow Jesus. Are you moving away from it? There's always risk to take if you're going to pursue the God of heaven. Are you taking that risk? Listen, do not miss in that story that Jesus would have moved on by. You know, one of the more sobering verses in the Bible is a verse that tells us in Matthew that the kingdom of heaven is forcefully advancing. You know what that means? That means that there are times that God will say to you, follow me, come on with me. And you have a choice in that moment to either respond or to stay put. But do you know what he won't do? He won't sit there and just keep begging and begging and begging and begging and begging. He's on a mission. He's on a mission. His mission is the redemption of all humanity. And either you are with him or, frankly, you will get left behind because he will just keep on moving. And one of the saddest realities to me that I see in so many Christians' lives are Christians that say to me things like, well, I just don't feel God anymore. I'm not sure where God is. I don't really get anything out of this walk. Nothing great or crazy has happened in my walk with God. And the more that I probe, the more that I ask questions, here's what I find. They're just committed to staying here where it's comfortable. And they may believe in him, but they're not moving with him. And so what I see in so many Christians, and it's so sad to me, is they'll just watch God walk right on by their life, calling them, inviting them, and it's something incredible. But because the whisper and the temptation to stay where it is comfortable and familiar is so strong that many times we will watch him pass on by and never move. So do not kid yourself if you're a follower of Jesus that just because you don't need to be in these waters, that you don't need to be stepping out onto some waters. There is some boat that God's saying, walk away from it. There's some risk he is saying, it's time to take it. There's some water that he is saying, it's time to walk on it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and get ready for a moment here. We're going to let our people continue to move in here that are getting baptized. I got to go change, and so we're going to sing a song. And this song is all about what this day is all about, the name and the glory of Jesus. So I'm going to ask you to stand. I'm going to ask you to sing it with us. And as you do that, we're also going to take a moment and a pause, and we're going to collect our offering this morning. And please, please hear this. If you're visiting, if you're new, this is about the only part of the morning we didn't design for you. Because we believe that God is a giver. He is not a taker. But for those that Paradox is your church, Jesus is your Lord, grab the bucket on the end. You know what to do with it. Pass it down. Put it on the floor. Somebody will come by to grab it in just a couple of minutes.
So just like Craig said, in a few minutes we get to watch people come up here on the stage and profess their love for Jesus publicly. We're going to sing this song. There is no name in heaven or earth that is more powerful than the name of Jesus. So as we profess this name and we believe who Jesus is, you guys still have a couple more minutes to maybe make that decision. Would you guys sing with us? Bring it all to peace. The storms surround you, let it break. At your name still, you call the sea to still, the raging beat is still every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make darkness tremble.
almost feel like I should have gone tanning before we baptize these white winter legs. All right, so let's get this started. Go ahead, y'all can have a seat. Morning. Step down. There you go. It's the step down always messes people up. How you doing?
I am. I'll try. I was baptized as a baby, raised by an incredible set of parents. I lost my walk, just kind of lived my life, not really thinking about God. And then in 2015, in the summer, something drew me into Paradox, and I met a lot of guides for my path with Jesus there who welcomed me. And I just want to thank him for recklessly pursuing me because my world crumbled, and God has given me strength and those around me from the beginning, my sister who's here to support me, not just today, but always. And all of you are a part of, I feel you are a part of my family. So I just thank him publicly and let him know I'm all in.
Awesome. And we are family, right? So Tracy, just a couple of simple questions. You're here today because you believe Jesus Christ resurrected, crucified first, and coming again. And it's your desire based on his love for you to live your life, to love him, to serve him, and to follow after him. Then it is my honor and privilege to baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and his Holy Spirit. Beard guys always make me jealous. I can't grow one, and that's a heck of a beard. How you doing, Josh? Joshua. So what brings you here today, man?
I'm here to get baptized and profess my faith in front of everybody that I believe in the Lord that leads us all day in and day out through tough times and turbulence and through good times. And wanted to come and profess my faith and be born again, be a brother in this church. So.
Awesome. So I know you're saying it, but let me ask it. You're here because you believe in Jesus Christ, crucified, resurrected, coming again.
Absolutely.
And it's your desire to live your life for him because he gave his life to you.
That's right.
Then it is my privilege to baptize you in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
I'm jumping right in. Thank you.
Everybody say good morning, Tracy. So I'll be honest and tell you, it's not as warm as it was for the 9 o'clock service,
A
but
lot warmer than I thought.
so do you want to tell us a little bit about why you're here?
Absolutely. I'm Tracy Sclafani. I have a husband, Joe, and 2 girls, Sabrina and Vanessa, that are 9 and 7. And I'm turning 50 this year, and I thought this would be a monumentous year to finally be baptized for myself.
Awesome. And you're here because you believe that Jesus Christ came, was God in flesh, died on the cross for you, rose, is coming again, and it's your desire because he loved you to love him and live for him.
I absolutely do. And I'm so grateful for this church. I've been searching a long time for a church family that I wanted to grow myself in and now my family. So I'm very grateful for all of you guys who made me feel special. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, it is my honor and privilege then to baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son,
and the Holy Spirit. You guys are sure I'm not going to shock myself, right? No. Taryn. This is Taryn, everybody. Good morning, Taryn. So you, sir, have been a real privilege to get to know in the last year or so. And anything you want to share with us about why you're here?
Okay, that's better. It has been a while coming. I've had a lot of people who have bruised their knees praying for me, some of whom I'm lucky enough to have in the room right now. I walked away from God for a long time. But when I finally shut up and stopped being angry at him for nothing, I realized that he was exactly what I needed. And it's been over a year now since I came back. And it's just time for me to publicly wash myself up.
Well, and I love just knowing a little bits of your story, too. I love that, like you even said, going away and coming back. And, like, this is a reach. And he didn't hesitate to reach back out to you. So you're here because you believe in Jesus Christ, crucified, resurrected, coming again, Lord of creation. And it's your desire to live your life for him because he gave his life for you. Then it's my privilege to baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and his Holy Spirit. This is Kristen. For those of you who don't know, Kristen runs what we call the hub downstairs. So all of that activity of greeting and meeting and stuff to sign up for and things, a lot of which even happen in this room, right here. And what's cool about that is it just means that all of us are on such a journey. It doesn't matter. Like sometimes you think like, you know, people in leadership, like they're here. Like we're all on a journey. There is no here, here, and here. We're all just on a road, journeying towards Jesus. So I probably just said too much. What would you like to say?
Well, I didn't really plan anything, but I was baptized as a baby in the Catholic faith, and I was raised that way. And for a while in my 20s, I kind of walked away from God as well. And about my 30s, or maybe even later in my 30s, I came to know Jesus again, and I, declared him my Lord and Savior, but I never got baptized. I kept feeling like for a while that I was covered, with the Catholic baptism. And then coming here, it's been a few years coming. I've been feeling the pull for a long time, and I just, I kind of was standing back and watching God go by like you were talking about this morning, and it's time for me to walk the walk and talk the talk.
Awesome. So you're here because you do believe in Jesus Christ, that he gave his life for you, rose again, and it's your desire to then give your life to him and follow him. And it's my privilege to baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Good morning. Pauline. Everybody say good morning, Pauline. What do you think? A little bit of an intimidating group of people, isn't it? No, not at all. So, would you like to share anything about why you're here?
Sure. I was baptized as a baby in a Catholic church, and I was raised like in every imaginable denomination. We were like bouncing from church to church and having so much like, having it being like forced on you almost in a way that it was like, Jesus, you have to be Christian, you have to do these things. It was just kind of like pushed me away. And recently I've been really distant with God and with my family, and I'm going into the military soon, and it's kind of, I'm putting my life at risk, and I know that. And I was sitting here and I just had a thought that if I do die in the military, that I don't want to die without ever having been baptized, knowing what I was doing, and not just as a baby, and knowing that I have given my life to Christ without any doubt in it that I was going to heaven. So.
Awesome. So you're here because you believe that Jesus died for you, and it's your desire to live for him. So I baptize you in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Morning, Brooke. Seems like there's a lot going on over there for you. Anything you want to share?
I was just sitting with my family, and my friends came to church with me today, and I just felt like I needed to do it. I just had a feeling that I had to do it, and I would regret it if I didn't do it today.
Awesome. Awesome. And so for you, doing it is about the fact that you believe what we're talking about. There's a God. Jesus is him. He died for you, rose for you. He's coming again for you. And so it's your desire to give your life to him and to live for him. And then it's my privilege to baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And there's Dougie. Morning, Doug. So, I've known you for a long time.
Yeah, several years.
Several years. So what brings you here this morning in this moment? What's this about?
You baptized me a while back, and since then I fell off the wagon, and it's time to come home. That's about all there is to it.
So for you, this is about you're being serious. You want to walk with Jesus. Give him your all. And this is a grab, right? Like we said, sometimes we walk on water and sometimes we fall through it. But every time we reach, he reaches back because he's good. And so it's your desire, because he died for you and rose for you, to live your life for him. All right, man. And it's my privilege to baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Paradox, would you just stand to your feet with me one last time? And one last time, because wherever they're at in the building, they can hear you express your respect and appreciation for the courage that people took today to take a step. All right, there it is. You all are so greatly loved. We appreciate you spending the day with us. If we can serve any of you anyway, we have a team of people up front. They're here to listen, to pray, to talk, to serve you however we can before you leave. Otherwise, have a great day, have a great week, and we will see you hopefully next Sunday. Bye-bye.